Ever wonder what keeps the lights on in India when the power goes out? You know, those diesel generators humming away, making sure businesses can operate and homes can stay lit.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about them until you really need them.
Well, today we're going deep, a real deep dive into India's genset industry.
The companies that build those workhorse machines.
Now, before we get too far, I want to make something clear. We're not here to promote any specific company.
No, not at all.
This is all about understanding the industry itself,
Mhm.
how it's grown, what challenges it's facing, the whole picture.
Right, we're using a bunch of different sources for this.
Yeah. Market reports, insights from the companies themselves
A real mix.
really helps us get a good look at things. And to help guide us through all this, we've got an expert.
Happy to be here.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Why is there such a huge demand for gensets in India?
Well, think about it. You have a country where the need for energy is growing incredibly fast.
Much faster than they can actually produce it, right?
Exactly. The power grid just can't keep up. All those booming industries, the rapid urbanization, they all need reliable power. And when the grid fails, gensets are there.
Like a safety net.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, Renub Research predicts the market's going to hit, wait for it, $2.7 billion by 2030.
$2.7 billion, that's a lot of generators.
It is.
But it makes sense though, right? I mean, P&S Intelligence even pointed out that even just the fear of power shortages, even if it doesn't happen.
Oh, absolutely. It's about peace of mind as much as anything else.
Yeah.
And it's not just homes either. It's, data centers, hospitals,
Right.
construction projects, you name it.
Entire industries relying on these things to keep functioning.
If the power goes out, everything stops. Jackson, one of the leading manufacturers, they really emphasize that in their blog.
Especially hospitals, right? Can't have the lights going out during surgery.
No, absolutely not.
Talk about essential technology.
Hmm.
But speaking of, life-saving technology, what about the environmental impact of all these diesel generators?
Ah, yes. That is the big question.
All that diesel burning away.
And that's where things get really interesting, actually. See, India just recently made a big shift to stricter emission standards. CPCB IV plus A, they call them.
Okay.
This is a major change for the industry, forcing them to clean up their act, so to speak.
So is this a big obstacle for genset makers, or could it actually be, an opportunity?
Well, it's kind of both, to be honest.
Okay.
Manufacturers, they now have to invest in new technologies to meet those standards,
Of course.
which, that can increase costs.
Right, yeah.
But like Jackson pointed out, it's also a chance for real innovation.
So maybe pushing them to find more sustainable solutions.
Exactly.
So I imagine some companies are better prepared for this than others.
Absolutely. Companies like Cummins and Kirloskar oil engines, they already had more advanced technology.
Oh, so they were kind of ahead of the curve.
Exactly. They were ready for these CPCB IV plus norms. That gives them a real advantage. They're likely to increase their market share.
Especially Cummins, right?
Yeah.
With all their international experience.
Exactly.
Those two names, Cummins, Kirloskar, they kept popping up in the market reports we looked at.
Yeah, they're the big players.
Almost sounds like there's a bit of a rivalry brewing between them.
Oh, absolutely. Kirloskar oil engines, they dominate the lower and mid-range KVA segment,
Yeah.
smaller generators,
Right.
But they're trying to move into the higher KVA market. That's where Cummins is king.
Okay, hold
Anna?
on. We need a quick explanation here. What exactly does KVA mean? Don't leave our listeners hanging.
You got it. KVA, it's a measure of the generator's capacity. So basically, the higher the KVA, the more power it can put out.
Got it. More power, higher KVA.
Right.
Okay.
So Kirloskar is trying to, step up their game and compete with Cummins in the heavy-duty generator market.
A real David and Goliath situation.
You could say that.
We talked about India, but what about the U.S. market?
Oh, yeah.
I saw something about Indian companies looking at opportunities overseas.
That's right. The U.S. market is massive, worth about $4 billion, according to Jackson.
Wow.
And Kirloskar, they just acquired a U.S. company called Wildcat.
Really?
Yep. Seems like they're serious about expanding.
So they're trying to catch up to Cummins.
Well, Cummins already has a huge global presence. About 17% of their sales come from exports.
Wow.
But hey, a little competition is good for everyone, right?
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
For sure.
Okay, so we've got this booming demand,
Yeah.
regulatory changes shaking things up, and this rivalry heating up. So what's next? Where is the industry headed?
Well, that's where things get really exciting. We're talking about potential game changers.
Like what?
Hydrogen fuel cells,
Ah,
electric gensets. The future is full of possibilities.
okay, we're definitely going to have to dive into that.
Absolutely.
But we're going to have to do it after a quick break.
These new technologies, they really could change everything, like hydrogen fuel cells, for example.
Oh, yeah, those were mentioned in one of the reports, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Cummins specifically is really looking into them. They're so much cleaner than diesel.
Which is a big deal for India.
Huge. It aligns perfectly with their push for a greener future.
So are we talking about generators that actually run on hydrogen?
Exactly. Instead of diesel.
That sounds, I don't know, almost too good to be true. What's the catch? There's got to be a catch, right?
Well, technology is still pretty new. And, the cost is a major factor.
I bet.
Plus, you need the whole infrastructure to support hydrogen fuel. That's a whole other challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense. But still, it's exciting to think about.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. And then there are electric gensets.
Electric gensets.
Yeah, okay.
They could be a game changer, especially in places where noise and fumes are a problem.
Like, I don't know, hospitals.
Exactly. Or residential areas. No more loud diesel engines keeping people awake at night.
Yeah, I can see the appeal. But how do they compare to traditional gensets? In terms of, performance.
They're definitely quieter
Uh,
and cleaner, of course.
Right.
But battery capacity is still an issue.
I can imagine.
And charging those batteries, well, you need a reliable power source for that, which is kind of ironic, right?
Yeah, I mean, these are supposed to be backup power systems.
It's the classic chicken and egg problem.
Oh,
But hey,
okay.
it's all part of the process, right?
Yeah. It is exciting to see these new technologies coming up. Who knows what we'll have in the future? Solar-powered generators, maybe, or something even crazier.
Mhm.
But for now, diesel is still king, right?
For now. Yeah.
And we were just talking about that rivalry between Kirloskar and Cummins. What are their strengths, really? What sets them apart?
Well, Kirloskar, they've really built a strong reputation in that lower to mid-range KVA segment.
The smaller generators,
Exactly. They're known for making reliable and affordable machines.
which is perfect for a lot of businesses.
Exactly. Smaller applications.
Makes sense.
But they want to move upmarket into Cummins territory.
And Cummins, they have that global reputation, right?
Exactly. They're the big name in data centers.
Makes sense. They need a lot of power. Oh, yeah. Huge amounts. And Cummins is known for those really robust, high-capacity generators, the kind that can handle the critical power needs of a data center. They've got the technology, the experience, the whole global network to support those high-stakes installations.
Okay, so how can Kirloskar compete with a company like that? What's their strategy?
Well, they're investing a lot in R&D, trying to catch up in that higher KVA segment.
Makes sense.
They've even launched Gensets specifically designed for data centers, hoping to, chip away at Cummins' market share.
So it's not just about building bigger generators. It's about, understanding those specific customers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Data centers, they need more than just raw power.
What else? What else do they need?
Rock-solid reliability, for one.
Yeah.
Advanced monitoring systems, top-notch service. It's a whole different game.
Yeah. And that's where a strong service network comes in, right? I remember Jackson in their blog, they emphasized that.
It's absolutely crucial if your generator fails, especially during a critical moment.
Oh, yeah. Big trouble.
You need a company that can respond quickly, get you the parts you need, get you back online.
It's about trust, right?
Absolutely. It's not just about selling the product. It's about being a reliable partner.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. I never realized how much goes on in the genset industry.
It's more than just those boxes that hum in the background, right?
Yeah. Emission regulations, global competition.
It's complex.
It's fascinating.
And it's a reflection of what's happening in India as a whole, really.
You mean like the rapid growth?
Exactly. The push for sustainability, the desire to compete globally, it's all there.
And it's all wrapped up in something as seemingly simple as a diesel generator. It really shows that there are fascinating stories everywhere, even in the things we take for granted.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? And speaking of fascinating stories, we've really only scratched the surface here.
We have.
But before we go any deeper, maybe we should take a moment to, recap what we've learned so far
Yeah, good idea.
and leave our listener with something to think about.
So we've really gone deep into this world of India's genset industry.
Yeah, we have.
All that demand, those challenges they're facing, the big players, even what the future might hold.
It's pretty fascinating, right?
It is. And it's made me realize how important these things are. Reliable power.
It really is the backbone of so much, isn't it?
From hospitals to data centers.
Just everyday life.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's break this all down. What are the big things you hope people listening are taking away from this?
Well, first off, India's genset market is just booming right now.
Seems like it.
All that rapid growth.
And the power grid struggling to keep up.
Exactly. But that growth might not last forever.
Air is always changing.
Right. Things like improvements to the grid, more renewable energy being adopted, that could all shift things.
So even industries that seem really solid today, they have to keep adapting.
Absolutely. Like we talked about with those stricter emission standards, the CPCB IV plus norms.
Yeah, that was a big one.
It's forcing those companies to invest in cleaner technologies.
Which, in the long run, is good for everybody.
For sure. It's almost like that pressure is actually pushing them towards a more sustainable future.
And on top of all that, you have that rivalry between Kirloskar and Cummins.
Oh, yeah. They're both fighting for that top spot.
Especially in those high-growth areas like data centers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that classic underdog story, Kirloskar trying to take on the giant
Cummins.
Everyone loves a good David and Goliath story, right?
It's hard not to root for the underdog.
But it's not just about India,
Yeah,
right?
we talked about that.
They're looking at international markets.
Especially the U.S.
Yeah. Kirloskar acquiring Wildcat, that was a big move.
Really shows they're serious about going global.
It does, but it's not easy breaking into a market like that.
No, it's already so established.
They're going to have to understand those local regulations, build a good network, really gain the trust of those customers.
Who are used to working with those bigger, more established players.
Exactly. It'll be fascinating to see how they do.
It will. So for someone listening to all this, if they step back and look at the big picture,
Yeah,
what's the one question they should be asking themselves about India's genset industry?
that's a good question.
Putting you on the spot.
Well, for me, it all comes down to this. Can they actually become a leader in moving towards a cleaner energy future?
Ooh, that's a good one.
You know, they're so reliant on that traditional diesel technology.
So can they really make that shift?
Exactly. It makes you think about what's possible.
It does. Well, this has been incredible. I've learned so much.
It's a fascinating industry, isn't it?
More than I ever realized. Thank you so much for guiding us through it all.
It was my pleasure. Always happy to dig into these things.
And for everyone listening, we hope you found this deep dive as interesting as we did. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep learning.